Welcome to the first. You have a story. If you look back on your life, you've done things for the first time that no one in your family, in your town, in the country has done. This is Dr. Sandi. You have unknowingly paved the way for others without knowing it or even acknowledging it. This is where you tell your story so that those who come after you can walk in your footsteps to build their own firsts. Hey everybody, today I'm speaking to Ketriana Yvonne. Some people go by a single name, but Ketriana Yvonne is a woman with two first names, not just one, but two. She's a force in her community and believes that everyone is a celebrity. We just don't know their names yet. She's a talk show host and producer at BRIC, where the Ketriana Yvonne Show features the best of people you need to know about, mainly in the arts and local neighborhood. She's the author and poet of Sequin Soul, which is a book of poetry from her heart. As she describes it, I wrote these poems from my soul to help someone on the journey they may be walking. Life is like shiny sequins, sometimes flashy, most times you lose some pieces. Ketriana is a member of the Old Brooklynite Society and feels strongly about giving people their flowers while they're here and letting them know they're a positive force in your life. She honors all her elders and particularly her neighbor who supports her. Everybody, let's welcome Ketriana Yvonne. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the first. Today,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm speaking today to Ketriana Yvonne, and I love your name, Ketriana Yvonne. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how your name? I love that name.
Okay, so I'm Ketriana Yvonne, and my name speaks for who I am in a sense. I was sharing a story to someone not too long ago. I hardly tell people about my name, but I used to be a makeup artist, and I was like, with a name like Ketriana, you don't need a last name. I'm going to be like Prince, because I wanted to do Prince's makeup until I found out he did his own makeup. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, and it was funny. Well, I can tell that story too. And I will share that because I'm a big Prince fan. I wanted to do his makeup, and this was all pre-internet. Everything is pre-internet.
Yeah.
So I saw an article, I contacted someone, and so, this was in Baltimore, and I was like, I'm a makeup artist, and I see you work with him, and I just always want to know how you, I always wanted to do his makeup. And he told me, like, first thing, Prince does his own makeup. But he did have somebody do his hair. I don't do hair, though. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I said, well, I work with photographers here if you ever need me. This man's name is Steve Parks, who also has a book. He did a photography book about Prince, and he was his vice president. And so I just thought, on the strength of that, he was a very nice person that I looked up in the phone book, and he happened to call me back.
Nice.
And that led to me going on a cruise later, pre-cell phones. And I guess because he had spoken to me, they had needed a makeup artist for a dance tour. And he was calling me, but I didn't know this because I was on my cruise. And when I came home, I had all these messages. And so I always feel like that was my opportunity, but I still have the story. And
yes, you do.
Yeah. So by the time I got home, everything I guess had already happened, and I was just like, oh my God. But it was a world tour, and it didn't do the full thing. So I think they did one or two legs of it. But that's always been a blessing to just have that experience of someone thinking of you when someone said they needed a makeup artist.
Yeah.
So I have that story of almost. But
and finish about your name. Did you wind up using just Ketriana?
Yeah, so I started using Ketriana legally. At the time I was getting a divorce, I was have to go back to my maiden name. After the time my mother also was after being separated for 20 years, she also got a divorce. So I was like, okay, I've had it with names let my name stand for itself. And I legally changed it. And then when internet came, you have to put all your pertinent information, which would include a last name. So that didn't work out for me too well. I ended up they would put U and K. So I got new Social Security, and then they had to change it. And I really didn't know how to rectify the problem. So I just took my middle name that I never used to use and figured I'll just use that. And
so it works out well.
Yes. Well, I still have problems because it's always your last name. And I'm like, yes, I hear you. So that's that story.
No, that's interesting because I don't know a lot of people who use their middle name as the last name. And so you're probably the first that I know. That's
right. And I can tell you it's a lot of people because since that time, this was in the 90s, and my college roommate, she goes just by her last name now. Another friend, she's a photographer. It kind of became a trend. And even my name, I know people that just named their nieces after me. Not after me, but they like the name. So.
Yeah. But don't they also have the same problem of needing a last name for documents?
Oh, no. They just use she just uses her last name as her first name now. But I don't know, like legally, but they don't call her first name. They just call her by her last name. And
because I was telling you that even the celebrities have to have a name,
right,
like legally.
Right. Yeah. Like Prince was Prince, but he was still Nelson Rogers and Prince Nelson Rogers. And always made up different names, like booking in hotels and
oh yes, they're famous for that. Those celebrities do that all the time, trying to be incognito, and their faces don't change, but they try to be incognito. So once I saw the Isley Brothers and oh my goodness, what's the other group that I love? I can't remember. It's an old. No, it was an oldies group, and we were in New Orleans for the Essence Music Festival, and they're checking in. Now they're plastered on posters, and they're giving different names to when they're checking in. Now I'm looking at them like, wait a minute, we're standing right here. We know who you are. Your face is right there. Why bother with the incognito thing? I guess they don't want people coming to their room.
Right.
Bothering them.
Tracking them down.
So, Ketriana, tell me about your TV show. You said you're the first to have a TV show and to graduate from college. Let's talk about that.
Right. Okay. So I have a TV show that airs on Brooklyn Free Speech, which is a part of Brooklyn's BRIC, which is community TV. And that happened, I guess, around the end of 2016. Wasn't anything really that I was planning. I just was starting a business at the time after working somewhere in another field for like 17 years. Mind you, after I have already doing everything that I thought I wanted to do. So everything after that time is like new stuff that I hadn't even thought about. So I was taking classes, you can take classes in audio and film and so forth. So I took the classes, I got certified. I did my first show, Poetry for Change, because I also became a poet. And that led to what we call our Emmy for Brooklyn, a Be Free Award. So I received that for a segment on that. So that was kind of inspiring. And I just always felt like in being a producer, things just worked for me. Not to say that they didn't work, but for someone who wasn't particularly in that field, that I was able to produce great content, which I am proud of. And that only comes from people doing great things in the world that should be recognized, and they're not always recognized because people don't know who they are. So I wanted to do a flip on like the celebrity thing, because almost everyone is a celebrity. You just don't know their name yet. So if I could help in any way to make that happen, that's what my show was about. So it was about creating a space for up and coming people that I'm deeming to be the legends of the future. And that can be in arts and culture. It could be in public speaking. It could be in mental health as a social worker, Egyptologists,
Wow.
teachers. It's pretty much been all of those people, the experts. And
Who's the most famous or the most interesting person that came on your show to you, that you learned the most from, or you found something you didn't know about?
Things that I didn't know about. I mean, it's really hard to say who was the most. I thought they were all interesting. That's why I wanted to interview them. But Dr. Mendelsohn, who is an Egyptologist and has written several books, and he is just like a historian full of knowledge. So when I sat next to him, it was kind of like, he came on to do poetry, and that just kind of happened that day because it was, I'm an Old Brooklynite, and he's also a member of the Old Brooklynite Society. And
is there actually an Old Brooklynite Society?
Yes, it is. And you have to be a resident of Brooklyn for 25 years. And
I could be an Old Brooklynite.
Yes, you could be. We would meet on Wednesdays, once a month at Borough Hall, and it's a lot of older people, and the theme is to celebrate some history about Brooklyn. So we usually have a speaker on Brooklyn. Since COVID, we haven't been able to meet, and because the members are older, it's really been challenging. There has no Zooms. So I met him that day when they do the honoring and open up in Fort Greene Park, and they honor the soldiers the remains are there. So he was just talking about poetry, and I just happened to be doing the show that day. And I said, "Oh, you can come on my show." So it worked out. He came right to the studio.
Nice.
And he had his laminated poetry on Egyptian history. And he read those, but then he went further, and he went into like the history, like his experience with the community. I think his mind was just like, like when you lived a lot of life and you have a lot of things to share, and it's just like, it was bursting. And I was just like trying to keep up, and it was exciting because he was so lit up about sharing everything he knew. So all I could do is just let him talk and try to absorb as much as I could. So I'm an expert on a lot of things, but Egypt is not one of them.
Does he go to Egypt all the time? Does he visit Egypt?
Huh?
Does he visit Egypt all the time? Does he go here?
He has, yes. So that was that's one that stands out. But they all truly stand out because that's why I have them on the show, because I either saw them or felt something in their spirit that I wanted to highlight and share with other people that have been shared with me, maybe seeing them perform, maybe somewhere else. And I just asked them, like, "Hey, you want to come on my show?" And so since then, it's 2021 now. And the category that I won the award in was the First Amendment Award, which is the special category, I guess, for me, especially at this time, to be able to still use your voice and have a say and make a difference. And so this year in COVID, I went out to a community garden and filmed different people of the community of why community gardens are important. And
Yeah.
so surprisingly enough, that led to another Be Free award, and which I'm proud of. And for the people that took part in that segment, it made a difference. And people, just knowing how important it is to have free services, which another part of it was to have the Botanic Garden be free. Even though they have community, you can have community tickets now,
Right.
but the person was expressing that it should just always be free for everyone.
They ask for donations. I think they just ask for donations, right?
No.
Anymore?
Mm-mm. Tickets are almost, I think I'm a member now, but I think the tickets are close to $25.
Oh.
But you can go, you can go online and get community tickets where they're free. But I don't know how many people, and that's something that happened, I believe, right before COVID.
Wow,
So,
I had years ago when I went, they used to just ask for a donation.
right.
Yes, they used to get monies from either grants or something else, but when that goes away, that's a lot of upkeep, the botanical.
Exactly.
So
So that's the thing. People remember that their children and what influence free services for community gardens and things like that held communities together and made a difference as far as having a place to go and learn and breathe. And,
free isn't really free because that person has to maintain and upkeep all the different things that we take for granted. And and I learned that when I worked with the city. So many things that we go to, someone is sponsoring them. They have to find money to sponsor it on the back end so that we can have it for free. So I truly appreciate that.
Right.
Free things.
Yeah. So, I guess, I was like, oh, well, the corporate sponsorships and different things or company memberships, I mean, they pay for some of those services, but I guess some people feel like you said, it used to be free. And so if it's not free now and it's not donation based, it's a bit of a problem for communities.
It might go away. That
right.
Service
and people will grow up and never have that experience.
Correct.
No.
Little things like the Children's Museum. I remember when I used to go to the Children's Museum. Of course, that was all free.
Right.
But then there was a time they needed to upgrade. And when you go to the museum, some pieces of it were dark because we don't understand that they have to keep the lights on.
Right.
These things aren't free to them. And so we might start criticizing, oh, they're not keeping up this or they're. We need to give back in our own way to ensure those services are maintained.
Right. That's true. And that's why, even with volunteering for certain things, I try to do my part with that. And, it can come to a point where you're like, okay, I'm overextended. I can no longer say yes to anything.
Yes, I know
right.
that's about.
It's because there's so many things that you want to give back. Like if I get, like you said, whatever workshops or anything that I was able to take and they were free, once I'm in a position where I can offer that to someone else, I want to do that because I carry what that experience brought to my life. Even just going to the library to take free classes on whatever they were on, I took advantage of that, and that created a whole new my life now. Because working in certain fields, I'm a creative person, and I have been in business for myself before in the arts, but not for a period of 17 years. So
Well, tell me about your art and your poetry. You're a poet and an author.
Right. So from taking advantage of free library poetry classes, well, one was poetry to image. And I remember distinctly that I had taken all these other classes. They were no problem. And it was just that this one had poetry in it and I was not a poet. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I going to this? And it was like the hardest morning. It was snow on the ground. I was going to use that as an excuse. Oh, after 15 people, they don't let you in. And calling people, you think I'll make it? So whatever, I stopped the nonsense. I got out of here. And thank God I made it to that class. And I met someone else. And we became friends. And she was a writer. And I was telling stories, maybe another time we met. And she was like, oh, you have such great stories. You should write. And in the vein of her language, I listened to her, and I listened because it was my voice. It was the voice that, when I see people and I feel stuff in their spirit about what they're supposed to be doing, I tell them. And it's the truth, whether they know it or not. So I knew that was my voice, and that was something I needed to listen to. So I became a writer and a poet, and it was
What have you written? What's your book?
The name of my book is Sequin Soul, Poetry from the Spirit, which is 100 and I guess it's like totally 115 pages. I wanted 111 poems. And that it's just a representation of a collection of poetry from A to Z, which in my vision, a lot of it is short, but I wanted people to read it in a way like just open a book and read something. And if you are having a struggle with a problem, maybe just reading one would give you some kind of uplift or maybe even a solution. So that was the goal.
You believe that my husband wrote a book called Poetry A to Z?
Really? Oh my goodness.
1970 something.
Wow. Amazing. And even the A to Z, that was even that, because I use everything, and I'm like, well, God is the beginning and the end. And so it was like I have a niece that is from a generation that I don't know, like I know a lot about a lot of stuff, but it's different than my experience when my aunt passed away. But if she told me something, I cherished it. I tried to believe it, follow it, do it. It's not like that for me. So for me, it's more like, oh, my aunt. They call me Aunt Trina. So my aunt, she knows everything from A to Z. And so she's calling up her friend in front of me saying this. And I was like, that is so rude. So I told her from now on, I said, yes, you're right. I do know everything from A to Z, and what I don't know, I will know. Yeah. And I said, from now on, you can call, call me that. And so that kind of stuck with me. And I said, I'm even going to use it in my book. And that's what I did. And so that's the story with that. And so it was to look at the book and either read the whole book or just pick it up and see, to be uplifted, because that's my whole point in writing, is just to inspire. So I can write about things going on, or things that are not of a good nature or whatever, because a lot of it was written from prompts that I had written in other workshops. And so, but whatever it is with me, it always ends with some kind of solution or insight to uplift you, or at least that's my intention.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your niece. Does your family celebrate all these things that you're doing, all the firsts that you're having, being a poet and author? How do they respond to that?
I guess they respond to it. I mean, I feel supported. It's probably not like, most families, because I don't have children. So it's not like, and I guess my life is a little bit different than people that have families. where with me is always something going on, and somewhere I'm going, and someplace I'm doing something all the time. So I think the greatest part of that for me has led, like my niece, she's 17. She just went to Clark University in Atlanta, and she started her own line of T-shirts, which is Be Your Own Muse. And she was doing pop-ups and, being a young entrepreneur. And I have another little 10-year great niece. She's like, I want to be a runway model. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do that. So I think that is a part of the legacy for my family, is to, to share your gifts and do whatever the gift is that God gave you, because that's why you have it. Don't really think that the only opportunity is to work for someone else. There's value in that, but it's also value that you came with to share. So I try to, and I think that's kind of,
we don't even know when other people are watching us.
Right.
Young people, they might say it, but their actions will tell you that, oh my God, my aunt did this. Of course I could do the same thing.
Right.
Because you're a role model for them.
Right. Like I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and they're all magnificent. I can't wait to see what they do in the world. Like I went to school in California. I was in fashion, and I went to high school of fashion industries here. But I was like, oh, I want to go. I want to go away. So I went to the West Coast. And my other niece, she lives in the West Coast now. And I always tell her, I want to be like you when I grow up. And because she has taken it another step, like she travels, she goes on adventures, and she's living her life in a big way. And I'm proud of that. And even if I didn't have anything to do with that, I'm happy that she has that expression in the world. So she does events, like more celebrity events. And I told her recently, start your business. So she did, and that's what she's doing. So I guess that's my contribution as far as being a first.
Yeah, but you're
to not
inspiring.
Be the last. Yeah, not to be the last.
Correct. The whole idea of being the first is so that others can come behind us and take it for granted that this is the way it should be, because Ketriana did this, and this is just the way it should be. Not having to worry about, oh, I can't do this, and I've never seen anyone do it. It gives them a lot of confidence.
Right. Like I have one niece that I've been telling her, like I thought she was the funniest person in the world, and I still do, but I don't tell her anymore because she didn't listen. So she works, she has 2 children, and maybe since she was 14, I'm always like, just be a comedian. And I'm that confident of her being so funny that I like, really, when you can see something in someone and say, forget about college. I never said forget about college or forget about this.
Okay.
But I believe in her being able to make it as a comedian, because I always tell people, because I'm really tough. Like, you have to be really good to impress me, because I guess I came up in an era and around people that were like the best. And I saw that. So some people never had that experience. So if I see things or people and their gift that measures up to what I think is like really good, I have the utmost respect for that. And not only if you just are the best, but if you have a want or a desire to do something and you just don't believe in yourself enough to just step out on that, I can inspire I can inspire you to do that too. So it works 2 ways.
How do you celebrate, though? How do you celebrate being the first to do all these things you're doing? How do you enjoy that?
I guess just living in an experience of doing it, because I'm living a life of doing things that I enjoy. So, if it doesn't bring me joy, I don't want to do it. And some things, I'm involved in, maybe politically, I have roles and so forth. And, you know, outside of the arts, I think of the arts is just such a wonderful space to be a part of with other people sharing that energy. Is just like no other thing. But I guess for me now is having the opportunity to work in other spaces with people that maybe you can introduce the arts and maybe actively changing the way some things are done so that maybe in some of these other industries of getting things done, you can add some light and uplift some people so that change can happen, but it doesn't always have to come the way that is. For instance, the usage of words, I think, is one of the most important things. Like with everything that's going on in the world now, it's like people want change, but I don't believe in using words that don't foster that to happen. So if people say, like, I'm gonna use an example, don't destroy Brooklyn, which was 20 years ago before the Barclay came.
Right.
And I had just moved back to New York from Baltimore and had been involved with another battle. No, I shouldn't use that word. With the city to save the smaller neighborhood libraries, which I was successful at, along with some other community people. So here, when I heard the person come up to me, and I had remembered working with people who were passionate about what they wanted to accomplish, but the anger and the way they went about it, it just wasn't going to happen. Yeah. So the person, they were like, don't destroy Brooklyn. I was like, oh no, I can't be a part of this. It's not
there was a lot of anger with
right.
the whole Brooklyn thing. And right. There still is. Only a lot of people are very quiet about it because they feel they can't beat these guys. They have way more money to come in and just take over your neighborhood. Right. I remember all the eminent domain conversations right. of people exactly. wanting to give up their houses.
Right. And were already renovated $1 million yeah. condos, and yeah. you're saying this is a desolate area with, whatever eminent domain represented.
Yeah, the rich guys wanted it, and they got it.
Right, and they got it, and like I said, just having the word be don't. I said that's not going to create what we want. So I guess what I try to tell people is like, project the word that the action that you want, not like, when it comes to cancer, fighting. When I watch politics and I hear them fight, the war on AIDS or the, whatever, these words, use the word that resembles what you want to accomplish. And I think collectively we'll have a better chance at achieving these things. And it's even like now, it's like anti-racism. And I'm like, it shouldn't even be like anti, it should just be, I don't even, all this,
I like
everything being
inclusive.
Yes, inclusive. But, we are all one people anyway. So when we start with as we have done with all the categories, and I understand, but if you look at yourself as one, just like the other person, and say, when it comes to certain things, this happened to this group of people. It happened to any person. It should not be allowed. So I'd rather stomp out racism, period, for everyone, instead of separating us as one, because we are all one, and we all represent each other.
That's going to take a lot of education.
Well, it's better to get educated, and instead of still going down the road we've been going for a long time. That's all that.
Well, I think this time after George Floyd, people are a lot more conscious
right.
of race and
right.
wanting to understand each other a little bit more. I also think because They're just simply a lot more interracial couples and
Right, right,
interracial people
right,
that you can't
right,
easily segment someone anymore
right,
like you used to. And so these conversations have to start, and they have started. And I'm very surprised when you see the people who are actually at the forefront and having
right,
dialogue. Some
right.
of them are very surprising, you know.
Right. People not being educated and being upset that they didn't learn this stuff. And that's why things are changing now as far as the curriculum, because if you're teaching people nothing about people that pretty much built the country and given not too much support to that, then, why would anyone think that they should be celebrating these people or whatever? It's just like, once they got the education, it was like a little anger that this, I wasn't told this. So now that the narratives are coming out and everything is changing, people can have a choice to see things clearly as who we are as people, and everyone's contribution in is right vein, the truth of what was. And because at any given time you're telling a story and you're only telling it from one aspect, and there are other people over here and they're saying that's not what happened, half of my people are gone, and no
Well, you
one's
need all
telling that part.
sides. You need all sides of a story. They said there are three parts, right?
Yeah,
Mine, yours, and the real thing.
right. So always give if it's three sides, give the three sides. Tell everyone's story, and then we'll all really truly be able to come together. So
What do you think are some of the negative stuff about being first, or some of the pitfalls that you have of being the first to do something? Do you see any?
no, I mean, I'm sure there is. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know if I ever sit down and think about, the first, I just keep it moving. And I think if you are the first, it's something to be celebrated. And of course, if you have pitfalls, but in becoming that, those lessons is what made you become the first. And if someone can say to you that you're the first, that means you accomplished that. So whatever you had to go through to be the first, that's going to be a part of your story. And anyone that's the first to do anything, they're going to have struggles. They're going to have where they tried it. Not everyone that you hear is the first. Don't think they just woke up that day and they made it easily.
We work
No,
hard.
they may have, huh?
They've
Yeah,
worked.
right. They may have, could have been the first a long time ago. Maybe they didn't have the confidence to do it at the time and they waited. It could be they didn't have the financial guidance or whatever, but they made it. So I don't see any of that as a pitfall. That's just a part of being the first, to recognize that it's not going to be easy. And as far as even saying something is not easy, or saying, like we hear that all the time, oh, you have to work hard. Yes, you do have to work hard, but I still believe that if you do what you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. So you may know that when you're doing something and you're groundbreaking, you're going to have people attack you. You're going to have people, struggles. People are going to stop you or try to stop you. But that's just, building your muscle for what's going to come. Because the further you go and the more you do, it's always some power out there that's like, oh no, this person needs to be stopped, or, not supportive of what you're doing. But if you do in love, the things that you do, is nothing that can stop that. So, yeah, I don't really look at all the stuff. If nothing happened before for someone to do better, or if they didn't go through something, they wouldn't learn those lessons to make them better, and to be able to meet other people in the world that have struggles, and to be able to be like understanding, oh, I've been there where you are. this is what you do. If you didn't go through anything, you can't help anyone else. So a part of coming into the world is to help others. So that's how.
I know we're definitely helping others. What do you want the impact to be on the next generation of your starting all these, being a poet, being an author? What legacy do you want to leave?
I think the legacy I would want to leave from the thing, for people that, like I said, I deem them to be the legends of the future, so they will be the legends of the future. And in that, remember to lift up the next person and help them go further than they were able to from the things that they learned, and always carry it forward. And, as far as writing, I mean, I think that that's the one thing that you can leave behind that stays in print. We got lost manuscripts that are found and have such a profound, effect in the world. So written word, spoken word, those things are lasting. And so that'll be a part of my legacy. And maybe even when I'm not living, if someone can say my name and say, remember that lady that did this or whatever, for your name to live on. Because I hear so many great stories from people telling me it was this lady and you need to write about her. And people come to me and they tell it. So I'm going to do that project.
Well, those people are providing inspiration for them, because I said before, there are people looking at you and you don't even know that they're doing, and your actions are saying to them, hey, gee, I could do that. Did anyone inspire you? Did you look at someone and say, I love the way that person's doing what they're doing?
I think I think growing up, I was sort of really quiet, and I don't think too many people would know that now, because I do talk a lot. But there was, and I think I just kind of watched people and felt things. And my aunt Lena, she passed away in 2014, but I still feel inspired by her every day. Even, it's just like her spirit is always with me.
What did she do to inspire you? That inspired you?
I think she was just overall, she was just a dynamic person. Every person, she was just love in action. And she, my uncle, she was married to Jesse Russell, who was a part of the Persuasions. But she traveled, early on, she traveled a lot, like early on, she graduated. She would just travel and tell, you need to get. I just remember being a young person and her telling me, you need to get your passport, and how true that is. You need to get your passport. And I was probably 17 or whatever. Even though now my nieces, they probably been more places before 20 than I have in my life, but that's great. And so she just was to everyone. I think everyone called her my, Aunt Lena, and she told you whatever it was, she told you it straight up and in a good way. She was just a fantastic person. So even in her passing, I always remember the funeral and how many people I didn't know that still tell me, oh, I miss her. Oh, she this and that. And you hear all these stories.
Because she made an impact on their lives.
Right. And so I think that's it, just to make an impact where when you're not here, people are still talking about you and what you did. Because if you come into the world, you came to make impact. So if you leave it and there's silence about who you were, or there's no celebration, it's no damage in that. But at the same time, did you live your life fully, express to live on? Like they say, your spirit lives on. And I think that's a part of how it lives on and how you lived. And I clearly saw that as an example. And not only her, but as role models. I have
anyone taken the time outside of you knowing that, and some other people saw your Aunt Lena, as one day those people will be gone, and Aunt Lena's legacy and inspiration might just be forgotten. So this is kind of why I'm doing this podcast, is to make sure we have some record of
Right.
the people who were here and did small things in their own way, that later on somebody might watch this podcast and go, oh, Ketriana, remember that painting she did, or
Right.
poem she wrote, and we still have the poem that we can read, and we have our poetry book, and all of these things is really creating your legacy so that when
Right.
you're gone, and I'm sure when some people listen to this podcast or watch this recording, I didn't know that about her. I didn't know they did these things. But I wish someone had taken the time to do that for your Aunt Lena. So that's
I remember like afterwards when you're not here.
yes.
Well, you know what? She did it for herself. She had she gave herself a party, and it was just because. And not too many people do that. It wasn't her birthday. It was just because. And she had a blast and invited everyone. And I guess in some way that was her, just being who she was. And of course, after she passed away, which was kind of sudden, and she, had cancer, and, she was on the board at a healthcare center, and they had a memorial, and, but a memorial after you're gone. And that's why it's important to give people their flowers while they're here and celebrate them, let them know the difference they make in your life. Because I have to tell you about my neighbor, because my neighbor is just a positive person that even during COVID, it was like, I did so many stories about how you've been coping during COVID. And, he's an older person, which, maybe it's not that much difference now. And I call myself checking in on him. And truly, he had blessed my life like every day since.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. I always tell people he makes my coffee every day. And he recently told me, he said, you know what happened? Why I did that? Because I think one day I came and I was in the store, and I came to his apartment, and I said, shoot, I left my coffee in the store. Like I had got the coffee and set it down, and he made me coffee. And I was like, oh my God, this coffee is like so hot. And he had like the fiberware, the old fashioned kind, where your coffee really stayed hot.
Wow.
And then he bought me a thermos, and truly it was my birthday, and from 9 to 5, I knew my coffee was still hot, and I was determined I was going to finish this cup of coffee. And so anyway, that became like every day I go get my coffee and I help him with whatever it is. And he had a story that he had shared only with me that I helped him with, and it made such a profound difference in his life that I tell him now, if no one ever tells me anything, it's okay, because he truly expresses to me what difference I've made. And I tell him, like, you really made a difference in my life too. And it's just been a wonderful experience. And I don't even think, like, going through COVID and all the things we had to adjust to, how it would have been different had that not happened, because my life has been transformed in a way, and so has his. And then I'm always telling, most of the people I know, and they want to know how's my neighbor and the wonderful things he does.
What's his name?
His name is Robert Smith. And he, like Sir Rob. He collects he's very creative. And even when you have a disability or whatever it is, doesn't stop. And so he probably walks more than I do now. And I guess that was a part of the inspiration. He goes to the Barclays station with a walker, and learned how to walk up and down the stairs with a walker. And
Wow.
believe it or not, I think that came from, I don't take the train, but I needed to go for a procedure recently. And sometimes he would walk me to the station when I went out of town and use his walker to help me with my luggage. I mean, no matter what, you can help somebody. And I think in his mind, he probably said, if something happened, I couldn't get down those stairs, because it was like that day. And now every day the people know him because everybody always want to help him. And he's like, no, I'm just, I'm just practicing going up and down the stairs with a walker from the Barclays.
I love Robert Smith and I don't even know him.
Huh?
I love him and I don't even know him.
Right. And you would, because he would be out in the street and he has like a walker, but it's all bright and has lights, and he sews. So he has all these, very giving. He'll buy things just to go out and share it with people. He definitely is, like I tell him, I said, you're a light worker. And he didn't know what that meant. I said, you bring light to people when it's dark, and just being you is nothing else you need to do. So, yeah.
But I'm so glad that you have Mr. Robert Smith in your life, and he can continue to support you.
Yeah.
In life.
Right. And it's almost like having a coach, but they're telling you like all the stuff. But in that, you're like saying to yourself, well, if no one ever tells me I made a difference, it really doesn't matter, because I am full from this person. And that has kind of brought me to another place, and just celebrating myself. And I think we all have to celebrate who we are, because we're all special and we all came to do something.
We should, and we don't do it a lot.
Right.
We really don't.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I want to know, since you're doing all these things, and a lot of them you're doing for the first time, does it make you bolder to try other new things? Like once you've written your book, you write something else. How does that work for you?
Right. So a part of, and that's my word too, and you used it. I'm on a local community arts council. So one of the things we did was we do these creative projects. Non-COVID, we would do them with the community. So we had to be creative. So we did a what they call a joy and resource guide. And so my contribution I did an article on the Chef Simpson, a new restaurant here on Atlantic Avenue, and a poem.
That.
Jamaican.
What is the name of it?
The Simpson Restaurant Bar and Lounge, where the Tony Romas used to be, across from the Barclays. Yes, it's been here since, I believe, February. I want to say February, maybe before. So
since Tony Roma's left, I have not gone down it, because
then it was Atlantic Social, and he's here and it's popping.
Okay,
and he's a celebrity chef, but I didn't know of him because he was already a celebrity. But now I'm like, you're in Brooklyn now, you got to get to know the people. And so he's doing a great job opening up some new restaurants in Miami, I believe Atlanta, I think DC, I'm not sure. But yeah, get out. And so I wrote the article on him, and he has a cookbook called Cooking with Love. And I think he had I don't know if his current podcast, Cooking with Love. And he's from Jamaica. I'll send you the link so you can read the story.
Yes.
And so anyway, the poem was...
I'll go visit.
Yeah, definitely. Was Walking Boldly in Red. So red was, my mother also passed, so her color was red. And so my theme is, red is bold, and I'm walking in my boldness, and, not so much to be seen, but to make a difference. Because if you just in a room, and nobody knows you were there, what difference did you make? Yeah. So it's just living my life boldly. And so when you said that word, it triggered that. And so that's cool.
Well, some of us, the older we get, the less bold we get.
Oh,
While
I think it's the opposite. I think it's I thought because the older you get from the people I know, I always admired older people. And I think with each age it brings more boldness because you just don't care. That's what I think. They don't care that what you think. They don't, it's just like you have a
that is
wanting your
bold in that sense.
time.
That is a boldness in that sense that they're at a point in their lives what you say doesn't matter. I
Right.
find they get tentative in other areas just because they feel like, okay, I'm this certain age and I shouldn't be doing XYZ. And
Hmm.
they get a lot more tentative in certain things. And I see it
Right.
in older people all the time.
Or you mean do,
Risks.
do they withdraw a little bit or from yeah, I did I have I did hospice volunteering for a while, and I kind of learned a lot about people when you get older, and I kind of came up with, like, you know how you have friends and they're older and some people get sick and they kind of withdraw and they don't want people to come visit them.
Right.
They kind of just withdraw. Whereas other people, they could be sick or but they
Everybody
still,
must go see them.
right, but they still want you to come. And I kind of got that a lot of people, and that's why it's important to be bold and live your life, because when you get older and you haven't done all of those things, or you were your job and your position and that's taken away, who are you? And
Yeah.
I think that the sadness comes with that, and the realization that I lived, I can't do what I thought that thing was who I am. A lot of times I have to tell people dealing with Alzheimer's and taking care of that parent, and that person is being mean to them or I've seen people cry and I'm like, and I just think that is the reason. It's because you have to accept help from someone.
Yes.
And the thing that always made that person who they were was the esteem of maybe this title or people looking up to them. And it's kind of like a resentment that I have to have these people help me. And you can't even accept the help. It's a little crazy, but I have seen it. And so I think if you and I for my life, I always say, like, when people introduce me and they say, "Oh, that's Ketriana, she has a show. Oh, that's Ketriana, she has a book. Oh, she's a writer." No, I say I'm Ketriana Be Loved, because that's what I want to be remembered as.
Oh,
I don't want to
interesting.
be remembered by, I want to be remembered or celebrated by the things I did. But most of all, I just want people to remember me as a person and how I made them feel, as they say. What's the people may not remember what you said, but they'll remember how
And
you
you
made them
make them
feel.
feel.
So I
Yes,
think for
Maya
me,
Angelou. Yeah.
yeah, I prefer that. You know, I don't want to live my life being things that I'm doing. That's just who I am, and let that be a part of it. So I try to, because I think when I remember people or celebrate people, yeah, it's people I meet and I'm celebrating what they do in the world. But most of all, I'm celebrating who I see in their spirit first, because that's what gets my attention. And I had, a matter of fact, that's a conversation I'm gonna have later, because I met someone in a writing group. Her name is Cynthia Jones, and she we were no longer in this group. And I saw her walking down the street one day, and I said, "Oh, I miss your writing, and I'm gonna help you. We're gonna, because I love your writing." And I guess she appreciated that, and she calls me, and she's a great spirit. And so then I was doing a writing group. She was in the writing group. And then just recently, last night, she says to me, like, "Why did you not pick me?" Or "Why did you, like, what did you," not so much, almost like, why did you talk to me? And I'm like thinking, like, so we had already talked a while, but that's today's conversation. I
Right.
spoke to her because I saw her spirit, first of all, and her greatness. And I could still see that she didn't see that. And I wanted that to shine.
Yeah.
And so I feel like me in the world I don't do anything really. At this point, I'm satisfied. I have nothing to gain, nothing to that, oh, I'm doing, most of the things I wake up, I'm like, praying, just tell me who I'm supposed to see, what you want me to do. Because fortunately for me, the things that I used to wake up and say, I want to be a makeup artist. I wanted to work with kids. I wanted to be an esthetician. I did those things. So my time for me had already passed as far as if something happened, I could say, I did all the things I wanted to do. Now my life is lived on the path that I'm led, and that's truly what I follow. Cause it's like, I still come up with things that, might go in a direction, but I can feel like, just being a producer, it's like how that worked out. And, it's plenty people that had more experience than me. And we would have meetings and people couldn't find people to work with them. And I always had my same people. And I love the people that work with me, because people are giving up their time to help support you. And I would give up my time to give back to whatever project they had to be a part of it, so we can all flourish, creatively. And other people would be like, oh, this person, I called them, they don't know the person. And I'm like, but that's your fault, because you're the producer. So I got that. And so anyway, that was I just felt that was a blessing, just to have people that wanted to work with me and on a constant basis and show up. As far as the people that had truly blessed me, that worked with me, that's been a absolute joy when that experience, that just have people that want to work with you and be a part of what you do. And that in some kind of way shows me that, what I do makes a difference and somebody thinks is important. And, just things that people say, that's, enlightening to know that people are watching. I definitely see that.
Yes, they are.
So,
and we're going to wrap up. So give me some info about your show. When does it come on BRIC?
My
channels?
My show airs, it's an hour-long show, airs the first Monday and Wednesday of every month on channel 79. Well, it depends on what cable you have. RCN is 84. Just check your local listing under Brooklyn Free Speech. The first Monday and Wednesday at 12 o'clock, and then it comes on at 5. And then throughout, check your local listings once again for maybe 3 other shows that air on our HD channel that changes monthly.
And the name of your show is, again?
The Ketriana Yvonne Show. And the name of my book is Sequin Soul, Poetry from the Spirit. And you can find that on my website, which is ketrianayvonne.com. Also, if you want to take a writing workshop, you can also just send me a message on my website from the contact sheet. And I'm Ketriana B. Love on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah.
So we definitely will find you if we need you. We know where to find you.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share and just kind of be on the other end of interviewing people, because I always tell people I just start talking. I don't really read like profiles, and it just comes what I'm supposed to ask the person. It just flows. So I kind of feel like I've been in that experience, with you. So thank you for the opportunity to be on the other side.
You're welcome, and I appreciate having you on.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Dr. Sandi. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on the first, where no 2 stories are alike, even if the circumstances are similar. Let this discussion serve as inspiration for others to show what's possible, and more importantly, to produce seconds and thirds.